The soaring oil prices are not enough to offset the exposure of Russia's weaknesses. We didn't start this war, but under President Trump, we are ending it, Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Secretary of War, told the American people on March 2. For observers of the situation in Russia, these words are quite familiar. We didn't start this so-called war. On the contrary, we are trying to end it, President Vladimir Putin declared several years ago, after invading Ukraine. Putin's realization that his own words were repeated in English partly explains Russia's rather quiet reaction to the US and Israeli attack on Iran. In reality, Russia has little capacity to support Iran, a country that has been considered an ally for many years. But even if Russia has the capability, whether it is willing to help remains quite ambiguous. For Putin, a friendly relationship with Donald Trump may be a priority, despite having lost 2 allies in 2 months due to U.S. military intervention, first Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January, and now Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei. The Russian leader is acting with extreme caution. Putin's initial reaction to Khamenei's assassination was limited to a condolence message posted on the Kremlin website, calling it a blatant violation of human morality and international law without specifying who was responsible. In contrast to the expected belligerent statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, the Kremlin has been cautious in its public pronouncements. "This is not our war," said Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesman. "We have to do what is in our best interests, that's clear." Iran's military cooperation with Russia has not helped the country much since the war began. To date, the most significant aspect seems to be limited to intelligence sharing. There have been reports that Russia provided target data for Iranian drone and missile attacks. U.S. officials claim Russia provided information to its Iranian counterparts about the locations of U.S. warships and fighter jets, as well as other military assets. When asked about the extent of Russian support for Iran, including communication between the two governments, Hegseth stated that he personally had no concerns. The equipment supplied by Russia in the past seems to have been of little use. In the mid-2010s, Russia sent Iran S-300 air defense missile systems. Later, the country went on to sell training aircraft and helicopters, combat helicopters, armored vehicles, and small arms. Most recently, Russia agreed to sell Iran Verba man-portable air defense missiles capable of shooting down missiles, drones, or low-flying aircraft. According to reports, an agreement was signed in December, under which Iran will spend €500 million, equivalent to $580 million, for 500 Verba launchers and 2,500 missiles, expected to be delivered within 3 years. However, it is unclear whether any weapons have been successfully delivered. For its part, Iran supports Russia in the war in Ukraine and provides drones, artillery, and ammunition. Under a strategic partnership agreement signed in January 2025, the two countries agreed to share data, but are not obligated to protect the other. They also exchange technology and expertise in monitoring and suppressing protests. Many of Iran's air defense technologies, including those from Russia, are also included. The structures, built and destroyed, first by Israeli and American attacks during the 12-day war in June, followed by attacks this month, are nothing to stop American and Israeli aircraft from continuing to dominate the skies. Iran has failed to shoot them down. On March 4, a Russian Yak-130, a training aircraft that had been repurposed for combat, easily became the target of an Israeli F-35. Russia appears to have no intention of retaliating against the U.S., for example, by supplying missiles or ammunition to Iran. Even if it did, Russia doesn't have much surplus equipment due to its own needs in the war in Ukraine. For Russia, the effects of this war are both good and bad. The country benefits economically from rising energy prices. The price of a barrel of oil in Russia, which is usually sold at a discount compared to the global standard due to sanctions, is rising. Western sanctions, which rose from under $50 in December to $72 this week, reflect the halt in oil tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz and market expectations of a prolonged trade war. This figure is significantly higher than the $59 projected in the Russian government's 2026 budget. In an effort to stabilize the global market, the U.S. granted India a 30-day waiver to purchase Russian crude oil.